Hi all, this is Skate, and today I want to talk E50M, because it's really hard not to love this thing. I mean, it's big, it's German, it's really mobile for its size, and it's very well armoured for a medium tank. And it's been a long time since I did a video on this. I mean, the last time I did a video on this, it had 8 degrees of gun depression still, technically, but it was only over the sides, so you had to get the gun on the outside of the tracks and then you can utilise that 8 degrees, otherwise it was 6 degrees over the front. Not too long ago, Wargaming changed that and gave it 8 degrees over the front. Now that doesn't seem too significant, however in reality, it has really brought this tank back. And I see this tank so much more now than I used to, and that's quite simply because it's a lot more flexible with 8 degrees over the front. On top of that, the armour thickness, or effective thickness when using that full 8 degrees, becomes a lot better. I mean, the upper plate on this when using 8 degrees of gun depression is virtually impenetrable. The cheeks on the turret, when pointing directly at something, effective thickness through the roof. Gun mantlet, absolutely non-penetrable. So when one of these things is hull down and the only thing you have to shoot at is the top of the turret sticking out, and it doesn't have a massive hatch, the only thing you've got to shoot at is the area on the front plate next to the gun. But again, that's not a huge area when you're shooting at this thing from some form of range. So those areas become very hard to hit. On top of that, if you're moving back and forth, they become even harder to hit, and then you're hitting very tough areas around it. So it's not an easy tank to penetrate. Yes, getting up close, a tier 10 tank destroyer will go through that all day long on the turret. But of course, remember, that's if they hit it. It's quite hard to hit this thing when you're on the move, back and forth, a little bit of left, a little bit of right, while hull down. So frontally, for a tier 9 and a tier 10 tank destroyers, as long as they can hit those spots on either side of your gun, it's pretty much an easy pen. For a medium tank, it's very hard to penetrate, and a lot will have no choice but to revert to the good old-fashioned, I can't penetrate you, I'm in desperate need of premium ammunition, which seems in very many cases to be the default when it comes to dealing with one of these things hull down. And then with the armour, the other thing to consider is we cannot always go hull down. In many instances, we have to be out exposed like this. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean this is a very vulnerable tank. When you're driving towards something like a lunatic head first, you can wiggle left, wiggle right, and even then you'd be surprised how many bounces you can produce just by people clipping the sides of this thing accidentally, because your traverse is very good for such a heavy tank. But the E50M one is not hull down. You've got two options really. Option number 1 is to side scrape up, and option number 2 is to drive in head first and play the face hug situation. Now, which one of those two to do in which circumstance is up to the driver to make the call. For example, if I'm against most tier 9, tier 10 tank destroyers, I will try and basically side scrape at medium range. The reason being is my gun is accurate enough to hit quickly, but my side armour, when the gun is in line with around the middle of the track, is virtually impenetrable. And it means at that sort of range, it's hard to hit those weak spots on either side of the gun. So for tanks with very high penetration values and good accuracy, it's a struggle to go in ramming head first, and in that circumstance, when you're playing a bit of range, your cheek vulnerabilities aren't as weak. Exceptions to these rules in my head are things like waffles and grills, and anything squishy or anything lightly armoured or light, because I can ram that thing head first, do a huge amount of damage to it, and then use HE to splash it to death and out DPM it, because the HE DPM is very impressive. But that's only for like lightly armoured tank destroyers. And then that's also the same way I will try and treat a 1 versus 1 against other medium tanks. Because side scraping up against them, they have the mobility to push in quick to you, and that's what they will do if they cannot deal with you side scraping. So rather than give them the opportunity, dive in head first. By face hugging a lot of medium tanks in this thing in 1 versus 1 situations, you're hiding your biggest weakness, which is your lower plate, because you had a face hug. Your upper plate is pretty much impenetrable because they're usually looking up at you, because most medium tanks are shorter than this. And then the cheek weakness is what you need to deal with. They have lower penetration, which makes it a little bit harder to deal with these cheeks anyway. But between your shots, you only got to wiggle the turret left and right a little bit, and it will produce some crazy bounces. So in terms of armour, I will literally go 3 stages in my head. Number 1, I need to be in a hull down position. I will try and be in a hull down position. Number 2, if I can't get in a hull down position, then I need to decide whether the tank in front of me deserves to be rammed, face hugged and dealt with that way, or via a little bit of medium or even long range side scraping. And that is the key to this tank, deciding which enemy deserves what. In many circumstances, it's ram just for the giggles because it's highly amusing. But if they've got backup, you want to be in a side scraping position or this sort of position. I have 100% total confidence in this position I'm in. Nothing, in my opinion, can really hurt me as long as I don't make a mistake. And by make a mistake, I mean give the side of my turret or leave the turret entirely still. So the armour on this tank, especially for a medium tank, is hands down easily godlike. It's just a machine. I mean, look at that Leo. He hasn't fired because he was constantly looking for that shot on me, which he just couldn't find. The biggest concern with this tank is that lower plate, and that's pretty much it in my head. That is literally the key to using this tank in my head, is just knowing how to use that armour. That's it, because the mobility is fantastic, and the DPM and gun are incredible. It's 3,200 DPM, basically, with 245mm of penetration. If you need to go HE on something like a grill, 4,100 damage per minute, with 60mm of penetration. No concerns whatsoever. And for those who have not played it yet, with those sorts of arm figures and that easy to manipulate armour, you would in theory think it's got a sloppy gun handling, but it really doesn't. I mean, it's very German, the gun handling. 0.272 accuracy when fully equipped up, and a blisteringly fast aim time. This tank can go long range, medium range, short range. The gun does not care. The gun will work. That being said, as long as you know what you're doing with the armour does not care if you go medium range, long range, or short range. It will still perform. The only exception to all this, and the biggest weakness for a driver playing this, more than anything, is situational awareness. Now that applies with every tank, I am well aware, but because the sides are so flat on this, if someone catches you broad sideways, it's not going to be, whew, lucky bounce. It's going to be, damn, that penetrated. Damn, that penetrated again. This is starting to hurt and get annoying. So, knowing what's around you, relocating using that mobility, will keep you alive considerably longer in this tank. Or, if you do have multiple targets facing you, use the traverse speed to your advantage. Look when something shoots you, and you know the next thing that's going to shoot you is the other target. Use that quick traverse to put your strongest armour towards them to increase your chance of a bounce, and then flick back. All in all, the E50M is very, very strong right now, and it's been a while since I played it. Recently jumped back in and went, hello, forgot how good this was. So no doubt you're going to see me on the battlefield in it a fair bit. Next video actually will be a nice comparative to this one. I'm going M48 pattern, which still stands as my favourite tier 10 medium. Probably my favourite medium in the game actually. But thank you all for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.